and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and today we're talking with Kristopher Kimlin, the director of American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story, which is actually a much more fascinating story than I thought. I'm not really a football fan, but I did live in Arizona during Kurt Warner's time, and I didn't know all of that stuff about him, and I will let you discover what that stuff is. Me and Kris had a really, really fun conversation. It felt like I was just talking to one of my old friends almost immediately. So, we go through all the old fun friend chats that if you've listened to this podcast a lot, you'll recognize, talking about special features and goofy set stories. And Kris also has a lot of really good tips, a lot of great DP tips that he's acquired over the years. And especially he used to work in live sports. So some good advice and sort of stories from that as well. I think you guys are going to love this one. Like I said, we have a ton of fun, so I think you're going to have a ton of fun. So I will just let you get to it. Here is my conversation with Kristopher Kimlin. What initially got you into film? Not necessarily like cinematography's career, but like where,
Sure.
Was it the childhood, I always went to the movies type thing, or did you come to it later?
E.T. E.T. was the thing that launched me into all things movies. When I was a kid, I saw that movie and I wanted to be Elliot. It transformed me in a way that I've never felt. I'd never felt up to that point as a kid. And since then, not effectively in the way that movie transforms me every time I watch. I'm a puddle of tears at the end. I still feel the exact same way when I watch it. I felt like I could be Elliot. I felt like I could open my closet, and I had a stuffed animal collection. I don't remember why. My grandmother loved buying stuffed animals. I remember that moment in the movie when he opens up. It's actually the mother that opens it up, and E.T. is hidden within the stuffed animals, right? And she doesn't see him close. That, to me, I felt like I could go to my closet because it was fashioned in a very similar way. Open my closet, and there could be my imaginary friend, whatever that looked like when I was that age. And E.T. just had that. And I remember watching that movie and thinking, there's kids that make movies. And that's so strange to me. How the hell did he do that? Right. And so I would memorize the entire movie. My poor grandmother, God rest her soul, she would sit down in her chair, and for 2 hours I would recite every single line of dialogue. And I was pretty good at nailing it all. And then I would also, like an AD reading the action in a script table read, I would tell her about what was happening and then make all the noises and everything. Like even E.T. when he was running through the woods and that type of noise, right. I would act all that out, and she would just love it every single time. And I watched it so many times. So that was the moment that I knew I wanted to do something in movies. If there was an avenue for making magic and to feel that same type of feeling, that was it. And still to this day, when I get up and I'm on a job, it doesn't matter if it's shooting interviews or if it's shooting a major motion picture, I feel that feeling. And I know that that's the reason why I'm here on this earth, that what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's gone through different forms and facets. I've had many different roles in this crazy business, but I still feel that when I get up, and I know it'll be time to stop when I don't. So
yeah. How deep into the like behind the scenes stuff did you start researching as you got older and like were capable?
Well, it wasn't available back then. That was before the internet. And, it was like, I had the books, I can tell you that much. Like Star Wars, I had Star Wars books that my mom bought me, and it gave like behind the scenes looks. There was ET books that I found, but they didn't, VHSs didn't have special features. I remember the first time I saw The Matrix was the first time this may not be accurate, but it's the first time vividly I remember watching something on DVD. My mother was actually getting an edit done for my dad's like 40th birthday, and we went to this little editing house in Greenville, South Carolina. Greg Grom was his name. I ended up working with him years later, which was like, I was like, man, this is like full circle. It's the first time I saw post production happening, but obviously he's doing this edit with all this like home footage. It was like a sit in for a few hours. And he's like, hey, I have this DVD, The Matrix, you can watch it. And I watched it on his television. And then I watched the special features, and that blew me away. I was like, am I supposed to be able to see this? Like, do they know that I'm watching like the behind the scenes? Like, that's how they did the 360. So that was really when it really first, but as a kid, I had that stuff. But when that stuff became readily available as a teenager, we would have movie nights, go to the movie store back when that was a thing. I know there's probably some people who are like, what's a movie store? What? It didn't just appear on your TV. I would go and I would tell my parents like, oh, we need to get this movie because of the behind the scenes. And they'd be like, but we don't want to watch behind the scenes. I'm like, no, we have to. We got to see this. I gotta watch. And I remember just taking that all in. And then I don't know if you watched much MTV as a kid. I'm sure you did. They made a show called Making of the Video, where they would do a behind the scenes look at music videos that were coming out on TRL or whatever. Right. That show enamored me because it like you could see so much into that world. And I just took that all in, and I still do. It's mesmerizing. I love listening to commentaries and everything, and then listening to podcasts like yours.
Yeah. Plug. No, yeah, that's that down to the Matrix. That's nearly what happened to me. Like I remember, the reason I asked the ET question is because when I saw the Matrix and all the behind the scenes stuff, it felt. This is what I miss about old special features is it really just felt like they were throwing it together. Like it was just someone with a handy cam going like, so what are you doing? And so it made it felt very approachable, like doable. When you just saw this grainy handy cam footage of like, Keanu like having the pillars blow up around him and stuff.
Right.
Or the VFX
now
guy
it's
talking
a meme
about the 360. Yeah. Yeah, with him slipping.
This is wild. Did you know that John Toll shot the Jaws behind the scenes footage? It's all shot on like 16, and like he directed and shot it. And I'm like, where is that footage? Where is that behind the scenes? Like that has got to be the most masterful behind the scenes it's ever been created. Like shooting it for Spielberg. And I think I heard it on like Deacon's podcast. So he talked about it, and I'm like, yo, you're just gonna drop that and be like, here's where you can't. You never said where you could find it. It's not on the DVD. I've scoured the internet looking for it. So I want to know where that footage is.
I have the 4K Blu-ray. I have two copies of the 4K because an Amazon screw up, and then I have the Blu-ray and the DVD of Jaws. And it's not even like my favorite movie or anything. I just happen to have all those, but I wonder if that's on the 4K.
I need to find out. I couldn't believe that when I heard it. It blew my mind.
Because that's the thing that my like sort of pandemic thing was. I just started buying up like Criterions and just like 4Ks and anything I could, because I was like, I'm bored and I miss special features, and they're still making them. And while they're still making them, I'm gonna buy. My idea was we need to make a Netflix. You, me, and all the other DPs need to get together. I've run this by ASC members. I've run this by fucking everyone, and they all agree we need a Netflix for special features, because I bet the licensing is cheap as shit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Because like whole special,
and it's just making ofs, or like obviously a big streamer could probably create a section, but I figure we keep this for us. And yeah, because I bet the licensing's cheap, and you could like make it so that you could watch the special features, and then at the end or at the beginning or somehow it could be like, and this is where you can watch it. So you can go watch the film afterwards or something like that. Because I'll do that sometimes. I'll do it the wrong way, where I'll watch the special features and then watch the film.
Dude, watching it in reverse order. Sometimes I'll watch the commentary before I watch the movie, that's like reading the book before watching the movie, and you like the book more. Man, that's such a great idea. And why haven't they not jumped? Because you know what? Marketing people will be like, well, only the cinematographers will watch it. And that's why marketing people piss me off, because that stuff was so valuable to me coming up. Like I watched that stuff, and I have a weird story about how I got into the industry, but like the first movie I ever worked on, I was in high school. I snuck on the set, and I was like, that is that thing that I saw on Making of the Video, right? And so then I was able to then put a name with that equipment. And then my first legit job, I was able to reference stuff that I probably wouldn't have been able to reference had it not been for that alignment of seeing the technology being used and just going, that's cool, to knowing the name of it very quickly and be able to connect all the dots and kind of know what it was doing. I remember that like the first time I saw a softbox on a lift in my life. I remember seeing that and going, oh, that's a soft, because I could reference it in like some Limp Bizkit behind the music or Britney Spears thing. And David LaChapelle was like, yeah, the softbox is where all the light's coming from. I'm like, don't know what a softbox is, but I'm going to remember it. Then I saw it and I was like, oh, is that a softbox? I remember the key grip looking at me going, how the hell do you know what a softbox is? You're the PA, right? And I'm like, yeah, Dave LaChapelle. He told me on making of the video.
He told me directly. You know,
he told me directly.
For me, it was the zip light. I saw it somewhere in a behind the scenes thing, and I didn't know what the fuck that was because all the other lights looked the same. And then there was that thing. And I remember, I just remember going like, all right, if I ever run into a zip light, I know I've made it. And the time I ran into a zip light was, let's say 20 years later, and I was filming. This is a behind the scenes into the kind of jobs people get when you're starting out. I was filming a medical training video.
We've done plenty of those.
Yeah, there's like this office in like El Segundo or something. And it just looks like a regular office. But then on the first floor, there's an entire hospital set. And this guy was just married. He's an older gentleman, and he was just married to
it's an actual hospital, and it has a set at the bottom. That's the most California.
No, it's not. It's not a hospital. It's an office. It's an office building.
Okay, God. I thought you were saying it's a working. I thought you were saying it was a working hospital, and they're like, yeah, but the first floor is a set.
Yeah, don't take people into the first floor. No, it's just like a regular office building. And I was like, is this where, oh, no worries. I was like, is this where we're really filming? He's like, yeah, we go in. But this guy was like married to hot lights. And I was like, okay. So I learned, some stuff there. But then I saw the zip light hanging in the corner. I was like, oh.
Hey, man, I made a lot of it. I remember when me and the boys that did Underdog, we went to college together, and they started up a company. We all started working together. Man, 2K zip. I remember the first time I struck that thing, and then somebody put a muslin in front of it. We would hire this grip, and he put the muslin in front, and it gave this warmth. And I was like, whoa, what? What did you just do? And he was like, oh, that's muslin. And I was like, what is muslin? And the moment I started using that, I never turned back. And that was it was because of a zip, that already beautiful soft light, then through that muslin on this interview. And I was like, I've never seen a key light look so beautiful. And that was my thing. I didn't know if I would ever find another light that would do the same thing. And then somebody was like, oh, we got a 2K open face. Let's just pop this into a bounce and through the muslin. And I was like, what are these things you speak of? And they're like, oh, it's like a book light. And I was like, what? And it changed my life. And then it all started like coming together, and man, zips and 2K open faces may be still my favorite soft source lights. 2K open face hitting, bouncing into something is my two favorite soft sources. And it's, the LED game is incredible, but there is nothing like that red filament that's in those original hot ass just tungsten lights. It doesn't exist in the LED space. You can't recreate it. There's just this special rich texture to it, and thank God for Deacons still using it, and some of these guys that they're still like committed to utilizing hot lights to get their images and get that beautiful texture on the face, that beautiful warmth.
Yeah, no,
keeping it alive.
I felt the same way until 3 days ago.
Oh yeah.
So Cullen Kelly is a colorist, and he's got a great YouTube channel. If you're into, I over the pandemic I became a colorist because I couldn't go anywhere. So I ended up.
So that's genius. And that's genius. Like that's the one thing that like as a DP you don't get to learn. right? Like I still don't feel comfortable in a color suite because it's all these other things I watched other DPs do. I never sat in a color session with any DP or anybody, but it's expected of you. And you're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. So I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, I hope to God that I shot it as close to as I can get it in this process. And, that's that weird thing. So kudos to you learning color. I'm far too lazy to take that dive. I mean, that's such a science to me. But it's good on you.
The key is my foray into life early in the late 90s, early 2000s. I played professional Counter-Strike, which for anyone listening,
like literally the video game Counter-Strike. You were professional?
Yeah. Well,
that's so
at
awesome.
the time we were like meeting at a Hyatt for like $200. This wasn't
that's
like
OG stuff, bro. That's OG stuff. You paved the way, bro. Ninja owes you.
Thank you. You know what's funny? Well, that's going to be a long diatribe. I was shooting an esports thing, and I was just looking at they're playing Counter-Strike, and I was just like, this is amazing. Like this used to be fucking difficult to find anyone to do this, and now these guys are getting paid so much. And there's this one dude, and I was like, bro, I recognize this guy. And I was like, hey, did you play like 1.5, 1.6 back, blah, blah, blah. And his name's Nothing. His gamer tag's Nothing. And I was like, oh, we fucking dude, I played you back in the day. And he was like, oh, all right, cool, man.
What a reunion.
Yeah, but and he was still playing. He still is playing. But so I started off as a huge nerd. So like pivoting into color, especially when we were all kind of locked down and stuff, like I had the mindset, I guess, or I have the mindset to like kind of dig into that. Plus, like when I shoot stuff, for the longest time, it was just on the C100 Mark II. So I was really trying to get that to look a lot better, But anyway, so Cullen Kelly, colorist, great YouTube channel, great podcast. And on his podcast, he had Steve Yedlin. And Steve Yedlin, obviously, for anyone who knows
Steve's
him,
awesome.
Super knowledgeable about the imaging pipeline. And so they were talking about color, and I was like digging it. I'm like, all right, yeah, because he helped explain a little bit of his like tech demos and stuff, which are kind of hard to parse out. But at one point he got to LED lighting, and I was like, yeah, he's gonna mention how it's difficult to get. And then he was like, no, it's the same thing as the camera sensor. Like if you have the correct coordinates, you can replicate any color. Basically he was just like, you guys are just lazy and not doing it right. And I was like, no, I thought he was going to say tungsten was the best. And I think the bigger, I'm totally winging it now, but I'm wondering if the bigger issue is output, because the tungsten can be so strong and the spectrum is really full. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you have a full spectrum LED that just hauls ass and you're able to get whatever that color is.
Right.
Then it would be close. But 70% of me still agrees with you that like tungsten is the way.
It's the red channel, man. There's something in it. There's something in it that just produces that warmth. I haven't found it, but again, I have as the deeper and deeper I get into cinematography, I'm finding myself aligning myself with the script a lot more than the technical aspect as much. And that sounds so terrible. I'm always up on the technical, but I don't spend nearly as much time now looking into the color spectrum analysis of LED. I'm reading, about story, right? Whether it's from Robert McKee to, Save the Cat, and understanding characters and understanding the emotional, the things that make people emotionally tick, going back, reading Greek mythology and understanding the origins of story and how it's been, because it really, that should inform where I'm placing the camera. That should inform what I'm lighting. That should be the thing that really makes it tick. And for a long time, I was so worried about the technical, about the camera. I was so worried about how to make it look pretty. And not to overuse, everybody's going to use Deakins for every reference, but I mean, he's just like the model of the guy who says, I'm going to find the beauty in the ugly. And I worked with this director, John Gunn, for this movie called Unbreakable Boy. That was our mantra. If people are laughing if there's something funny, there's usually something sad as well. And if there's something sad, there's usually a humorous moment. And if there's something beautiful, there's something ugly. And if there's something ugly, there's something beautiful. And if you can find that contrast and finds moments, that's what should form your photography decision. And it took me years and years and years of failing and not knowing why I was failing and why people would be like, the photography really didn't, I mean, it looked really pretty but I didn't get a substantial feeling from the frame. And I was just screwing up. I didn't even know, because I felt like all I need to know is I need to know every name of every light so I can tell the gaffer exactly what to put there so that he walks away going, damn, that guy's a DP, man. He's really smart. And now it's like, I don't care what you use. Here's the emotional value that I want out of it, because that's what we're going for. And if you've got a better way to do it, you're the one doing, like my gaffer, Andy Lorenz, who has been my longtime gaffer. And we did Underdog together and a slew of other movies. He works on all these Marvel movies with a crew in Atlanta. He sees stuff that I'll never see. Right. Like I'm realizing now with the landscape of like movies and stuff like that, I'm not making Marvel movies. If I did, whoa, that'd be awesome. But I'm not making Marvel movies. So they're doing stuff that I get giddy when he sends me a text knowing I'm never touching that. Right. Like that thing's incredible. He sees all that stuff. He knows everything that it does way more than I can. And when he comes and plays with me, like I just say, just take the techniques that you've learned and just know that this moment when I go in on this face, one, we can't distract from the moment. So don't make this about the lighting, but at the same time, we got to capture some magic in those eyes, right? And just lead everything to that point, whether that's soft or hard. And we talk about that stuff a lot, but it's all emotional based now. It's all based off the story for me. And I love talking the tech, but I have really gravitated away from focusing so much on that. I want to be able to walk in and assist the director as his best friend and understanding how to best get the emotional response out of the audience that we possibly can. And I've never talked with the director about the red channel in LED lights. And
well, that's also the path, especially in modern times. That's like the path of any sort of creative, right? As you focus on the tools until the tools disappear. And then you realize you have a canvas and you're like, oh shit, I guess I should paint.
I mean, Nomadland is a perfect example of a movie that takes you so deep emotionally, and it is not about the photography whatsoever. Yeah. And there's beautiful frames all over that movie, but it is not about that. And the camera is us. And I've never, like, there's very few movies I can say where I feel like it was me, like I'm just there. Another one was The Lighthouse, and that's on the total opposite spectrum of something very composed, very tableau, black and white, non-existent of color, but you feel like you are shoved in that lighthouse with those two men losing their minds, and you are losing your mind at the end of it. I'm almost exhausted, but I'm like, damn, that was really good. And I felt like I was there. And that's a focus on story and character, which I love.
Well, it's funny that you brought up sort of contrast too, because that's the whole game of cinematography, right? Is you don't want to flatlight someone. And I always think in analogies, like that's just the way I learn, I guess. And that's the same thing. Like that's how I started thinking like, oh, everything is a juxtaposition, or else like you cannot have dark without light, like physically. It's just, that's how nature works. And that's how everything works. Like it's not a high note if it's always 100%, right. You need the low notes to shape and form that.
Yeah. It's all about contrast.
Yeah. For the book that I read that I remember like got me sort of like broke down story in a really easy way for me, which is hilarious, is Aristotle's Poetics.
Yeah. 100%. That's the origin of all this stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like you got to go back to the source code. You got to go back to the originating material. And once you start digging into that, you're like, so that's where all this came from, and they, that's really where it's laid out on the table for you. And it seems arduous before you do it, but then when you're finished, you're like, wow, that just informed so much of everything that I gravitate to, everything that I love to watch or that I feed into emotionally. That's where it all came from, man. It's like a roadmap. That roadmap exists for us. It's there. You just got to find it. You got to read it.
Yeah. It's something that we've talked about a lot on this podcast, but I think going from technical to feeling is the most, like, that word specifically, I've been like, a lot of films are very technical and they don't go off feeling. And you can always tell when a film is made to feel correct. Like, they didn't look at charts. They didn't it's not like, oh, we need to do, I've used this joke before, but it's like, wide over coverage. Like, no, you can tell when there's a checklist, and you can tell when they're like, well, this is where it should be, and this is where the light should be, because it feels right. And they don't consult the checklist,
I get worried about coverage too. Coverage is such a thing to tackle, is like getting out of that mode of over, wide over, close up. And, like some of the directors that I've worked for, especially like the early ones that we've worked together forever, we're a little more classical in their coverage approach. And that's what they like for their films. But finding angles that tell the story really takes an effort of saying, like, pushing off coverage and saying, I'm not doing this thing. And while doing that, you're still hit with all the pressures and all the rigors of producers, time, money, and all of those things. The easiest thing to do is to put that camera over the shoulder, even to the point of like eye lines, right? Making eye lines work, because when you shoot singles, it's, obviously it's all where they're looking. So always lining it up over the shoulder is just the easy way of knowing that you're nailing it, right? And to go, no, we're not doing that. And then to be able to it takes a risk on the director's part. And I love writer directors. I love, but the editor director is the one that kind of tosses me, the one that has spent more time in the editing suite, because what they're doing is, oh, I know that if I get this, I've got it, right? Whereas, and then there's also a pacing issue. They want to talk about pacing. Well, if I don't get this, I can't cut it, and it's pacing. And then they don't like to take the risk of just living in a moment as much as maybe I like to. So there's that constant, and then I think a lot of that stuff gets solved if you have enough prep time, but you're always up against not having enough prep time. So it's that constant battle of making sure that the outside of the director DP unit is not affecting you and forcing you into those moments where it's like, oh, we got our wide, okay, medium, close up, right, or over, and like, hey, I know that we can get that, and it's really like that will solve it for you, but let's put the camera over here because this profile is really magnetic and it's two people facing off, and that's perfect for this scene because this emotional trigger works here because that's the beat of the script, right? And that's why for me, pulling away from the technical, pushing more into story, I have to be able to explain that to the director much more than the lighting. So let the gaffer do that job. And I'll just inform them off of the emotional trigger that we're going for.
Yeah, I've always said that being an editor has made me a better DP.
100%.
But I could see how having an editor director would be kind of I mean, it's the same problem with being a DP gaffer, is like that that's two brains that need to be separate for this to work out.
And and at this level of cinematography that I'm doing, I'm still dabbling in, I've done scale movies, but I'm still doing tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3s. When you get to tier 1, a lot of the directors are being hired because of the money situation, are editors or have been editors, and that's where they're pulling from. And they're great. Like it is a great value for pacing and things like that, but it can inform the photography very easily because the director feels comfortable about shooting just an over the shoulder, and that's maybe not the most appropriate coverage for that moment. Let's think outside the box. Let's tell the story with the lens, not necessarily tell the story of the ease of comfortability of editing and piecing it together. But on another podcast with an editor, they're sitting there. I really fucking hate it when the DP comes in and they're just so concerned about getting their other angle for coverage. And man, all you need is we just need to get to the faces.
Yeah. I mean, shit. Everyone likes to toot Fincher's horn. Certainly I do, but he's kind of the king of like. None of his frames are like interesting necessarily. They're all very kind of workmanlike.
He does. He finds this thing with mundane that really works, and I think it's obviously his knowledge of his story and the script. And the thing I love about him is how heavily he's not the writer director, but he's the story director, and he's so heavily involved in the writing process. Yeah, he really is, and full control. And I'm sure I just remember watching this podcast with Eric Messerschmidt, who I think is awesome. And I love his story coming up from being a gaffer. And every single interview I saw, Fincher was with him. And I was like, damn, does this guy want so much control? He can't even let Eric just do an interview by himself. And I'm sure it's not that way at all, but that was my uninformed perspective of it all. And I'm just like, I just want to hear from Eric. Fincher, we know you're great. We know you know visuals. Could you just let the guy do what he does?
I think that's twofold, because I'm pretty sure I watched I was supposed to interview Eric forever ago, and then once he stopped, he was doing press for Mank and then immediately jumped on another film, and so the time was lost. But I was watching everything, and I don't want to say educated guess, but my researched guess is more that Mank was a sort of a passion project for Fincher because his dad wrote it.
Right. Yeah.
But also, I get the feeling that when you're on one of his films, you're not doing a traditional DP role. He sees the film in his head and you're facilitating that in a way that I think Eric probably got to the point where he was like, I'm just saying it all comes down to David so much that we should just have him on, But
he's so talented. The guy is so talented.
He's great. And
what a cool experience to do a Fincher film like that. I certainly can't sit over here and be like, yeah, I wouldn't want to work in that situation at all. But I think it's notoriously hard. I hear it's notoriously hard because he's so. But here's the thing. Again, what makes him so special is it's all from a place of story and character, and the technical. Which is ironic because he's such a technically minded guy. Like he holds such technical value, like even to the point of, he doesn't use a steady cam. It's all off dolly, and he knows how to manipulate everything. And then the VFX putting, not bringing in certain elements that are going to throw his day off or throw the actors off because he can replace them. Like that's a mass technical knowledge that you need to have. And he owns that company that does all the VFX, but like, having all that, it still feels like he never leans on that. That's pushed to the side. That's over there. I'll deal with that. The only thing I'm worried about is performance, these characters' performance, and the story. That's it. And kudos to him for doing that. That's why his movies are so great.
Yeah, the technical allows for them to take. From what I've heard, is like the reason that they're so technical is to allow for the most time possible for the actors to act. He's like, we don't just get the boom in there. I'll cut it out. We have split comps. Like, get the good audio, let them act.
And there's part of me that's like, man, that's so wonderful. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I know it was very tough for me with the Irwins on, we did this movie Woodlawn where it was, John is a very visual, sensible director, and he's been involved heavily. He's the DP himself. And so he is very much into visuals, but so that was like, here's the keys to the kingdom. You are the DP, you take care of everything, right? And I was making all the choices from lenses to camera placement, and I could just feel John's itch, and that's how he communicates with his brother. He likes to operate as well. And so we had this like really frustrating go at it because I wanted to protect the image so much that and I was so arrogant about it. This was like a big learning experience for me. I was so arrogant about it that I would throw things out of focus if I saw equipment and stuff like that. And there were moments that were missed that were not as important the fact that there was a C-stand in the frame, one, could be painted out if they wanted to, but two, the performance is so good you don't even notice that in the background. And that was a really hard thing to tackle, hearing from the director, who was also, we went to each other's weddings type of thing. So taking that value, and that was at that point in my career where I thought that one, Woodlawn was that was my platform, and from then on, all I had to worry about was how many Oscars they were going to hand me, right? That's how arrogant in my brain I was about it, and nobody could tell me any different. And then I watched the movie, and the movie's great, but there's these moments that I know happened that I took away from the director, and that was wounding to me, and also wounding to them. And that was an amazing learning moment. I hate that it happened on such a big stage, but for me, that was when I was like, stop worrying about trying to be the guy. Stop trying to worry about being the DP, like the respected director of photography. Screw that. Get in the story. Love it for what it was. Love it for being ET all over again, right? Yeah. And that's the thing that changed me there. And it was like, I'm here to work for the director. I'm not here to work for myself. Nobody's going to this movie because of some auteur like shooting that I did, which is bullshit anyway. So once I got that through my brain, that's when everything kind of changed for me.
I was going to say that people only really look up the cinematographer if it's amazing. If it sucks, they just go, that movie sucked. So you have kind of that
yeah.
You're good.
I don't know a person in my life that goes, I'm going to go see this movie in theater because of cinematography, aside from 1917.
Yeah.
And there's an argument to be made that movie is not good if you edit it, right? If it's anything other than what it is, which is brilliant on Sam Mendes' part. I'm not digging at his work, but it's
you know what? I just saw Gravity for the first time 2 nights ago. And I was like, this is 1917 in space.
It is. Mileski was doing it way before everybody else, right?
You had mentioned that you came up with your friends from college. What was that like? Because a lot of people don't get to sort of continue their career with the people that they learned with.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that the most successful relationships in this business are the ones that you've kept on for a long time. For instance, you start reading stories of Adam Sandler, of actors primarily, and how they kind of came up together and they fed off each other and kept working with each other. I went to school in upstate New York. That's where I met them, at a small Christian college up there. And we were making camp videos, right? I remember the first time that I ever got it was a GL1. And it was put in my hands because John had directed this camp video that takes place in this like little Western village. And there was, there was a line that needed to be said. And we had like wad shotguns, like very dangerous and stupid for this to give them to us in hindsight. But this wadded shotgun, and the guy shot it, and it jumped his line, and then he like had a weird reaction. So John said, I just want you to get the line of dialogue, and then I'll cut into a wider shot where he shoots it and we can use the footage, but I need that dialogue. So he gave it to me, and I thought, here's an opportunity to direct. I've never done this before. So I went out there, set up the camera, and I thought I talked this guy through like award-winning performance. And I brought it back, and I go, this is the best stuff you're ever gonna. This is gonna be the best stuff you've ever seen. And so he uploads it.
Put on your seatbelt.
Yeah, put on your seatbelt. This monologue's gonna blow you away. And so he puts it in. This is the mini DV deck. He puts it in, and it's completely blown out. This is very hard for me to tell this story because as a DP, the first thing I ever shot as the DP, if you will, was totally blown out. And he was like, I wouldn't know if this performance was any good because I can't see anything. You're like 4 stops over. He's like, could you go back and shoot it again? So I had to do a reshoot of a reshoot. And so went back and exposed it properly. But that it really, I loved working with them. My only other experience at that point was this movie called Finding Jack Kerouac. That was the first time I looked through a camera. It was a 416 it was this movie that I stuck onto. And I remember looking through the camera and seeing a different point of view that I'd never seen before. And I was like, this is power. I don't know what this is. I could hear the film clicking when they rolled it, and I could see the image. And there was just through that eyepiece. And then John afforded me the ability to do that again. And back then it was, it was camp videos, weddings. I moved to Alabama with them. They're from Alabama. Moved to Alabama. We made wedding videos together, but I cut my teeth on storytelling because I was editing those pieces that I was shooting. And like you said, being the editor made me such a better shooter. And then from there, we all shared a house together. They worked for ESPN. I went and pulled the cable behind Andy, the other brother, who was a handheld operator on the sidelines. And so I'd pull that cable and I'd get another job. And I remember getting a job on the sidelines, and the camera operator goes down. He got hit. And he was like, dude, pick up that camera and shoot. I don't know if they can ever use your stuff, but pick up the camera and go shoot, and all the best of luck. And that led to more work in sports. But then it would come back and they would be shooting documentary work as their career progressed, weddings to like corporate documentaries, which were a big thing, corporate videos, as the zip days. And, you did that, and then I would have this new sensibility, what I call a fast twitch muscle, that I would get from shooting live sports, that I would implement into documentary work and living outside of the eyepiece, and which I'll inform you in a minute what I mean by that. But as they grew, then it moved to music videos. And then I got this like itch to light, right? I was operating, but I was like, why does my stuff look so much different? It's the lighting, right? And so learning to light. So I became their gaffer we did 72 music videos in a span of 2 years, from Christian artists to country artists to pop artists, like no names. Not like I was on Dave LaChapelle videos on making the video, right? So, as I learned, as they excelled, I excelled in different areas. I became an AD at one point and decided that I didn't want to kill myself. So I left that, because it was just awful. But all of that culminated to all of those experiences culminated to John was doing a music video. I joined him, and the key grip, I was gaffing. The key grip looked at me. He was like, hey man, you're like operating, because I was operating at the same time. You're operating and you're lighting, and you choose the lenses. So I'm just trying to understand why you're not the DP. I was like, oh yeah, I just do it. I'm just the gaffer, whatever. He was like, just to let you know, that's like a different position, and you should probably do that. Also, there's a pay bump to that too. And I was like, yeah, I make good money as a gaffer. He's like, no, I'd like to say that's a significant pay bump for you. And I was like, oh, so I just went up to John and I was like, hey, from this point forward, I'm the DP. And John was like, oh, okay, cool. Awesome.
Sounds good, bro.
And so, yeah. And so we just worked together on that. And that became our working routine. And then it moved to features. And then I was able to branch out from there. But the reason why that was so special, specifically getting long-winded answer to your question, having that friendship, we grew together, and it gave me the same platform that a film school had given me, in the sense of trying different things out, failing at them. But I was still getting paid to do it, minutely, by the way, but enough to live. And as they grew, I grew with them. And then all the different opportunities that we had informed who I was as a DP. And to get to that fast twitch muscle, a lot of guys, close their eyes when they look through the eyepiece, or they put it on the left eye. That's the narrative format. But because I grew up in the sports world, you didn't know if a football was coming at you. If you're down the third base line on baseball, you didn't know if you're going to get a wild ball coming at you. Basketball, if you're underneath the goal, you didn't know what could be missed. So you always lived outside of your eyepiece. That's what I was taught. Always keep your eye open. Always kind of keep the image in the peripheral. Cinema obviously is much more of a curated image, so that's where the focus is. But what I've learned is being able to live outside that eyepiece I just want actors doing something else, or when they're feeding a bit of emotion back, maybe at a time where we would miss it because the camera's settled on this one person, and having that ability to, in sports, you always had to get the camera as gingerly as possible over to capture something that was happening to inform the audience. And so now I look at that as an opportunity to inform the audience. And that came through the documentary and live sports experience of being able to live outside of that kind of narrative bubble that we can put ourselves into. And now it's informed the way I operate as a DP and looking for the moments that are being sold outside of just where the lens is, because sometimes those are magical. When you have kids on set, for instance, they're doing things that may be just, that's the magic that the director needs. And it's the times when I roll the camera the director didn't know, they come back to me at the end of the movie, either at the premiere or down the road. They'll send a note and they'll be like, dude, this moment that you captured, I didn't even know you went after. That saved me in editing. That's the emotional beat. You got the emotional beat. And that's the stuff that's really important to me. I love when you can capture that. It's just living outside the lens. And it came from those guys coming up a route that was very unorthodox, that was very, not film school, right? And just guys just finding it and doing it because they loved it.
I've talked to a handful of documentary DPs, and the ones that have kind of switched over to narrative, I've noticed that they've mentioned that sort of, I guess, confidence that documentary has given them, because they were forced to look for those moments. So when it's scripted, they're like, okay, there it is. But then they always seem to be able to tell, or angles specifically, just like finding those times.
I agree.
It's good practice.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing that I offer. That's what I try to explain is, if people are looking for that thing that's different, I would say just bringing that sensibility of being able to notice things a little bit more free flowing than maybe some narrative folks. Not that I hate that question. Like, I've had that question a couple of times. What do you bring that's different? And I'm like,
oh, shut up.
I hire really well. That's what I do. So if you're really into a DP that hires guys really well, other than the things that you can see that I do, then that's the thing. You can take that to the presses during your press run.
Yeah.
That's what I do, is I hire well. I trust certain people I see something in. But yeah, no, it's just it is a comfortability. That's a good way of like you're more comfortable with the camera. The camera is almost more of an extension of you and your sensibilities than anything else. And you're able to kind of navigate those waters a bit better. And when you do it, I remember operating on a movie for Michael Negrin, who's an ASCDP. I think his dad shot second unit on Godfather, stuff like that. Like, one of these guys. And we were shooting this period piece, and I would just go find these shots and make them work. And he was like, I don't think I've ever experienced. He goes, you've given me I just put like a little entry into the scene in some way, shape, or form. And my AC that I've worked with forever, Diego Montiel, he and I would coordinate these things. It made value out of the B camera a lot more. And he was like, man, you always gave me an intro and an outro to something, and I never had to inform you. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, well, yeah, how do you get in and out of these scenes? So I might as well give you a shot. Like, it's no science. There's no like earth shattering thing to it. It was just out of the necessity of my own, like, at least give you guys something to come off of or work off of. And I think the comfortability came with not feeling like it was that rigid, like composed thing about movies that we're so used to, of just going, okay, I can come into this a little bit more. And he gave me that opportunity, and it was, a lot easier for B camera than A camera. So,
sure.
But yeah, it's a comfortability. It's a fast twitch muscle. You just find it different. It comes from a different place. It's a different type of training. I would never take a cinema operator and throw them into the Super Bowl. That would be a nightmare for them. Oh my God. Wait, did we rehearse this throw? Because I that's just the way it goes.
Those like the ability for a lot of football DPs to like zoom in on the ball and then widen out right before it gets caught is impressive.
It's all timing, bro. It's absolutely all timing. And I learned from the best in the world. His name is Tim Tu. This guy is a guy that you'll never read about in ASC magazine or anything like that. But every epic tight spiral football you've seen from the biggest games in history. I remember he did the NBA Finals years ago. It was the Heat and it was Heat Cavaliers. And there's this guy's incredible. The basketball was tossed up into the air, and he was just like mush in the background. And the ball comes up and it's super slow-mo and the ball is spinning and he pulls focus. And it's not like he's got an AC. This is all just to him. He pulls focus. The whole ball is filling the frame. He pulls focus to the ball. Fingertips come up and he follows that ball into the hands of Dwayne Wade and follows him down and just pulls out at the perfect time. And he starts dribbling ball and walks out of frame. And I was just like, how in the world do you procure that shot? It's unbelievable. And then there's another friend of mine, Shane Marshall. If you're on Instagram, it's making the rounds. NBA, they're like, it's on Film Lights or camera something or other, whatever those accounts are. It's frustrating me because they don't tag him in it. And I'm like his agent going around, you need to tag Shane in this because it's him mid basketball following these guys taking shots and he just goes tight spiral on the ball. And it's all about timing when it comes out just enough to hit the net and give that beautiful, beautiful swoosh that we're so accustomed to. But it's such a procured, like you have to learn that stuff. And man, it's amazing to watch those guys do it. I spent many a years doing it and I loved it. But man, those guys, they are the best in the world. They are the best in the world. And that's why they're doing Super Bowls and NBA finals. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Earlier you had mentioned like getting a good in and out. Can you maybe give people an example of what that might look like?
Sure. It's the best way to put this is utilize the whole entire set. So as a B operator, and I do need to preface that I wasn't the A operator. A operator obviously is much more rehearsed in that sensibility. In that sense, all I got to do is take my sensibilities and add them in. But I use the whole entire set. So if I knew where I needed to end up in the frame, but I also knew that I had the option of using like an extra, using them as a pass. So I would go inform the extra, hey, if you could pick up this prop over here and just take that. And as you walk by, you're going to push my camera into the scene. That would really help me out. And there's so much that a DP has to worry about with two cameras or multiple cameras that stuff is the stuff that I feel when I'm doing it, I kind of forget about or don't have time to plan as much as when I'm focused on specific dolly move. So I would just add that into the mix, or I would talk to Diego and go, hey man, if nothing else, let's just roll into focus here. And then on the out, is saying, I know what A camera's shooting, but here's the thing, there's a perspective over here in this other actor's face that I could go get. And I know that we're shooting two angles of this actor, but as we get to the end of the dialogue, I know that this dolly push is what's going to be in the movie. So why don't I wing a little left here, as long as it doesn't mess up the lighting, wing a little left here on this guy's face and just grab his reaction as an outro. And it takes a confident DP, and Michael is that through and through, to know that maybe he's not getting this actor over here is not getting the full force of the beautiful key light that's been set for the actor on A camera, but it's enough. It's just a moment, right? And I think that there's a certain level of arrogance that you push to the side to say, I'm okay with this because it makes the movie better. That reaction is worth it in that moment. To maybe it's not as curated. And there's movies that need to be curated in that fashion, and they're all shot by Paul Thomas Anderson, and that's fine, and that's fine. But and I think that there's a lot of value to that, and those people are amazing, and I love the work that they do. But in my job in that case was to give him an in and an out. I felt and find something that maybe he wasn't able to see in the moment, and also help them move forward. And there was a great deal of thanks for that. And I just remember, and that's now what I say to my operators, like, don't violate the line of action or don't, don't, if you know when it looks bad, right?
Right.
If it's not lit, don't shoot it. But you have the freedom to move within this frame and get me interesting stuff. And sometimes the best thing is what is if it's a nervous tick of a character and it's tilting down to grab the hand on a knee that's shaking, a foot moving, maybe, they're moving their palms, stuff like that. Go find that stuff, because that's the stuff, again, that directors will go, and that really assisted. It gave me a way an option to cut away, but still tell the story. So I want my guys, and I hire a lot of, like for the football movie, I hired sports camera operators. I hired NFL films guys. My Steadicam operator is the Monday Night Football Steadicam operator, Clay Lovelace. And so why? Because I want that reactionary timing. He also does movies with me, but he also has this reactionary timing on the field. He knows what the play looks like and how it develops because he's watching the best in the world do it. And so he knows how to frame for that stuff. So I just tell him, like, instead of center punching, give me that cinematic look. Maybe give me a little bit different of a frame. And yeah, sometimes I get more of a center punch look out of it, but he tells the story because he's used to telling the story for a director week in, week out. When it comes to that, I have NFL film guys, had a buddy of mine come out, operate a fourth camera in Dallas. And he understands how to capture that tight spiral look, right? And that's more important for me for the story and that reactionary timing and what to look for in a football movie, say, than for me to try to compose all those angles. What you can give as an operator to a DP when you kind of think outside of the box really helps in the editorial process.
Well, and it's got that's a great transition into talking about the film, but that's what makes people think it's real, is if it reminds them of what they see every weekend.
That's right. That's right.
What's funny is I went to college in Arizona, and so when I heard they were making a Kurt Warner movie, I was like, why? Like, I had no idea. I had no idea about his life. I just knew he was the fucking quarterback. And I was like, all right. Like, but his life was intense.
It's so intense. The only reason I remember is because I was shooting sports at the time. And I remember people talking about the guy that was bagging groceries. Like, I would say I was shooting sports, but like I knew that story because we talked about that story when I started shooting sports, I should say, because it already happened. But when I would do NFL games and they would talk about Kurt Warner, they would talk about the guy bagging groceries. And I thought, man, one day they're going to make a movie about that guy. And then I ended up shooting it. It was super strange to me, but it was so weird to see how many people on Twitter and stuff like that are like, why are they making a movie about Kurt Warner? Who cares? Like, what's so great about his life? And I'm like, wait, do you guys not know about like what he went through to get to where he is? And they didn't. And that's what's so special about get to see the story, because it really is an intense life. A lot of, he really was an underdog. Like it really was.
Yeah. Well, in my defense, I don't watch football. So
that's okay. But see, that's what I love about the movie is it's really, the last 20 minutes are where the football shines, if you will, but you have to earn that. You have to earn that. And the movie is really about relationship and overcoming great deal of odds on both sides, even with Brenda, his wife, who really is like the champion character, in my opinion. Like, she went through the most, even more so than Kurt, but she really supported Kurt so much out of love, like not out of like that weird thing of like, oh, I just have to support my husband. That woman is a steel worker. Like she shapes metal with her hands. Like, she's badass. Brenda is one of the most badass women I've ever encountered. She did that. That was like a humbling support, because she knew that he had such a passion and she wanted that for him, because she understood what it took for him to get there. And that to me is what makes that character so special, is not like, oh, I have to do this for him. It was, I want you to do this because I've seen the work that you put in and I know what hard work looks like. I was a Marine, right? She was. And that's what's special. That's what makes the character. And that's what I love about the movie. It's not about football. It's about an incredible relationship where people sacrifice for the passions of each other, really. Kurt really sacrificing and taking on her son Zach, who was blind and suffered from many ailments, and they have that wonderful organization takes care of adults with the same ailments, It's an incredible story of passionate people wanting to achieve great things and supporting each other in that process.
Yeah.
And then you get 20 minutes of fucking awesome football, in my opinion.
This wasn't a pandemic project, was it?
We shot it during the pandemic.
Okay.
During like the craziest point in the pandemic, which was
like
obviously, well, no, it was like the election. Remember the election?
Oh,
like,
no.
Yeah. So you have all of that going on and whatever. I'm not talking about politics, but you had that going on. So its emotions are high. And then you have people being sick constantly. And this was like when there were COVID coordinators with measuring tape. Like I remember one guy had like this 6-foot stick and they put him in between us. And I was like, this is so crazy. How do we do our jobs? I remember operating and my eyepiece would just completely fog up and I'd pull down the mask and pull my eye away just to do it. And then right at cut, COVID coordinator, excuse me, I saw you pull your mask down. And I'm like, we get one chance at some of these shots and I can't have my eyepiece fogging up. What are you kidding me? Like, and we're outside. Like, how about, anyway, I could go on days for that.
Stick.
But the amazing thing was the crew and how much they came together during that time and how much they stuck together, and the stuff that we pulled off was incredible during that time. And I always look fondly on the movies that I shoot and the crew that I work with, but especially that crew and the sacrifice that they made, because it was a sacrifice. It was, you go home, you don't know what you may bring back from set. We shot during the coldest winter ever in Oklahoma. And like had a snowstorm shut us down for one full week. Crazy. And everybody made such sacrifice wearing those masks. This is the mask and shield time, right? So you had the full getup. They all sacrificed so much to do that movie out of love for Kurt and the character. And I'll tell you why. Kurt, I remember at our hotel, the whole entire place was covered in snow and ice and you couldn't get out. And the lady called our director, John, from the front desk. She said, there's a man outside that's shoveling snow. And he said that he knew you. And he goes, okay, that's cool. So he walks out and Kurt Warner was shoveling snow by himself to get the crew members' cars. He had flown in after they told him don't fly in because of this storm. And he was out there with a shovel, shoveling snow out to allow the crew to get their cars out. And this, by the way, was not on a shooting day. This was on a Saturday. He just wanted people to be able to get their cars out so they could go to the store. And that speaks to the character of a guy like Kurt Warner. Like he didn't have to do that, man. He didn't have to do that at all.
Fly to shovel snow? No, I don't think anyone
fly to shovel
to do
snow,
that.
basically. And he was there every day, and it was such a treat to have him. But it's that sort of sacrifice and love for the project. Obviously, it was about him, but everybody was that way, and we really grew as a family. And it really still pisses me off today that people shut down the house having a wrap party. Because the wrap party is never for the heads of state, right? It's for the crew. Right. And we never got to have that wrap party where we could just thank everybody because it was all under the guise of COVID and all that crap. But and understandably, I just want to say, but still, that family, that Oklahoma crew, and what they did was really incredible during really, really tough times.
I was interviewing the head of animation at a show that was on Quibi. And really great guy. And he was saying that, because I was asking him, I was like, so did you just send everyone home with the computers and then they just work remotely? And he was like, yeah, it wasn't too big of a deal because it's animation. But he said almost exactly that. He was like, the biggest issue is when we wrap on an episode, it's just silent.
Yeah. Yeah. And you crave that time to just kind of reflect and to thank everybody and give them a big hug and tell them you love them and can't wait to see you on the next one. And it seems so minuscule maybe to some people, but man, it's that, and because it's only a few hours, but right. It's just such a time to reflect and to thank each other. And it's just that release altogether. that I miss on movies now when they don't have them because of all the COVID regulations. But man, and anytime during this is such a family unifying thing because it's so tough. It's so tough to work in.
Yeah,
But thank God, I will say, let me just say, thank God to our COVID coordinators, because they get shit on so much because of all the processes and how many things they're shoving into each orifice of your body. But they really, they have as much of a sacrifice. They encounter the people that are sick first, and they're the ones that encounter all, and they really do a really great job in even at times where we think it's ridiculous. So, and then to that crew specifically, they gave our whole entire crew, it's right when the vaccine came out, and offered up free vaccinations for everybody. Get them first, because that state actually, Oklahoma's, they made film workers essential workers. So we got the vaccines first, which is probably horrible to talk about in hindsight, but is kind of crazy.
No, I mean, California did the same thing, and I thought, like, why? And then they were like, well, the news. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not the news.
Right, exactly.
Like, in you go, bud. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, but LA's vaccine like distribution was fast as shit. So they were literally begging people. They were like, we have so much room, just come. And we're like, well, we're all waiting for our time slot. They're like, fuck a time slot, just show up.
Just show up. Just get here.
Just get here. But I will say, like, yeah, that's a thankless job. I help run college ski trips every winter, and this past one, Keystone was really, really like hard on the mask thing. So I had the stack of masks, and and this is like Alabama, Louisiana, like these schools coming in, and I'm handing out masks, and just getting every mask I handed out, I was further and further down everyone's shit list. And it got to the point where, like, I was getting yelled at by kids, and I was like, there's a million signs. You're only in this conference center for like 30 seconds for check-in. Just put on the thing. And one kid, like, he like had it around his chin, and I was like, hey man, you got to pull that up. And he goes, what about everyone else? And I was like, oh buddy. Like, I didn't have a stack of 1,000 in my hand, like walking around. And that's just handing out masks. That's not even like the 6-foot pole and the whole thing. And so, definitely a thankless job, but, I hear they get compensated well, so that's good.
Yeah, they do.
I wasn't gonna ask about Kurt Warner's involvement in the film, but it sounds like he actually was all up in there, because normally, like,
he was there from the get-go. Like all the way from the beginning. Like the Irwins do this thing where, and they do it with Lionsgate for all their projects, is before they greenlight a project, they go ahead and Kingdom puts together a documentary. It's usually 8 to 10 minutes, a documentary on the story that they want to produce. And so Kurt, from the very get-go, was part of that documentary. And I remember walking in, the movie was originally supposed to shoot the year before COVID, and it got shut down the week that I signed my deal memo on a Thursday, and I think it was a Friday when the NBA shut down, and I was supposed to arrive in Atlanta on Monday. We're supposed to shoot in Atlanta. And by the way, also 25% bigger budget, right? They cut that 25% during COVID, right? And so then people start disappearing that you thought were going to be a part of it, and so on and so forth. And so so I remember during that span of time before that, they were doing the documentary, but then they were ingesting a lot of footage. Kurt like sent all his home movies to the office, and it was weird. I walked by an intern's office, and it's all these like home videos of Kurt Warner and Brenda Warner, and I'm just like, that's so weird. Like, you don't get to see that part of their lives ever, and this is what we're looking at to help inform the story. And then when they got there, he couldn't be there because of the Super Bowl. He was working Super Bowl.
What's that?
So he couldn't be there. It's I think it's a big soccer tournament. But he loves soccer. He wasn't there because of the Super Bowl. And then after that is when he came in. And when they came in, it was his focus was, how can I inform your creativity? I don't want to tell you. How can I inform it? So if you have any question. So when we shot in this bar, the bar sequence right at the top of the movie when he meets Brenda, that was a lot of like question for me, because am I actually, what is this? Does this environment really richly display what you guys went through? And because obviously it's a different place, and we had no frame of reference because the actual bar had been torn down. And so he just walked me through the process of how he met Brenda, especially through the dancing, and it kind of informed how he did the photography. But there's this moment in the movie where he finally gets her name and he dances with her, just the two, right at near the closing. And this moment is so beautiful because I didn't know how to shoot it. I didn't really know how to frame it. And my gaffer and production designer, we had gone through, like, there were very low ceilings in the bar. And so we weren't sure how we were going to light it with them being so low. And we came up, I was driving and I heard Darius Rucker singing Wagon Wheel. And then for some reason it was like, what if we have a wagon wheel light, like the old Western wagon wheel lights? And then Nicole,
with all the bulbs.
And then Nicole Elsperu, our production designer, she was like, that's brilliant. Let's take it further, right? She goes, let's make it different than wagon wheel, but still the same concept. And between her and my gaffer, they created this incredible fixture that looks so perfect for the environment, but they created it from nothing. It had like 300 15-watt bulbs in there. It was this incredible fixture, and they're standing underneath it. And so I'm like, how do I feature this all correctly? And I was just struggling with this moment of how to get into the scene, because now he's finally got her, right? And I didn't want it to be just this wide shot of them dancing on the floor and then cutting the coverage. And so Kurt walks up to me, he goes, do you mind? This is so reminiscent of how I felt like when I met her. I just want to take a picture with me and my wife. And they start dancing on the floor, all around the floor, like they do in the movie, like doing this dance together. And it's just this beautiful moment. And then he takes her and he kisses her. And I have the picture. It's this picture of him kissing her. It's a black and white photo. They kiss and it's underneath the lights of the wagon wheel. And I'm like, holy shit, that's the frame. That's how I get into it. And it's the exact same frame. And you can go to my Instagram and see it. I think I put it up there. It's the exact same frame that I have of just taking their picture before we started shooting. And that was how I got into the scene. And he just, without even knowing it, Kurt and Brenda informed the photography by just doing what they do and being just real. And it was so cool. And nobody will ever know that until now, I guess.
Yeah.
But
exclusive.
Exclusive right there. That was so cool for me, just because it was real and was grounded, and it feels that way in the movie. And there was so much of that with him, was just like, this is the way it happened, and this is how I felt. And you're able to go, oh man, and then I'd be able to go to John and be like, Kurt said he felt this way. I think if we stay in this shot a little longer on his face, or let's make sure to get this reaction. And maybe we tell Zach, this is the way Kurt felt. And he was always there for Zach and informing. So never once, though, was he that type of guy going, hey, I want my cousin in the movie, or, this would happen or that would happen. In fact, we wanted there to just to nerd out, to put him in a uniform and throw one of the footballs.
Yeah.
But he refused to. He was like, no, I can't do that. But he does. The moment when Kurt buys his car in the movie, this green Jimmy, because he thinks he's going to play for the Packers the rest of his life. And he buys this green Jimmy. It is Kurt's hand signing his own name on the deed to the car. So yeah, we did fit something in there. But at first it was tough to shoot.
Accurate signature.
It was tough to shoot because, dude, that dude's fingers are fucked up.
Oh,
he's been hit by helmets. And so I had to creatively find an angle where it's like, hey, Zach's finger doesn't really curve off to the left like yours does. He's like, oh, that's when so-and-so smashed their helmet into me after I threw the ball. And I was like, oh my gosh, your fingers are so messed up.
That's funny. Shit, man, I've taken you over time. I'm sure your wife wants you, but I'm having far too much fun.
No, this is great. I enjoy these things.
Yeah, but I will have to wrap it up. I ask the same two questions at the end of every podcast. I've said a few times now that I'm changing it. And so I think I'll change it I'll just ask. All right. It's 3 questions. It's kind of.
All right, great.
All right. First one. What's a piece of advice that you either received or read somewhere or something like that? Just kind of maybe a phrase that's kind of stuck with you through your career. Doesn't have to be the piece of advice, but just like one that comes to mind.
Other than learn how to save money.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be working all the time. Yeah. Man, that is such a great, there's so many of them. You know what? It was when I was gaffing actually. And Key Grip on a show that I was working with, he goes, man, there's this little box right here. That is the frame. And you must protect that box at all costs. And I remember thinking, this guy takes this shit really seriously. And then realizing, like, he was a veteran, right? But then realizing how important that box is and protecting that box. And that can mean so many different things, but protecting that box and what that has now become for me, protecting that box is when they put the slate in there and my name is on there and it says director of photography, I'm the last person to sign off on that shot and everybody's safety is on me. Everybody. And I have to protect that frame, and then protecting that frame, I'm protecting the people behind me and the people behind them. And I'm the last guy, last defense between hitting that button or going, we can't do this. And I take that very, very seriously, very, 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 very seriously. So protecting that box means protecting everybody behind it. And that was probably one of the most profound things that had ever been said to me. And I've taken that with me. And I tell everybody, you got to protect that box. You got to protect it.
That's great. Second question. American Underdog is in a double feature. What's the other film?
The other film, which I am going to say this because they have pushed the date. So I don't know when it's now coming out. You know, COVID, this all sucks with theaters. But the movie's called The Unbreakable Boy. It is my favorite movie that I've ever been a part of. Because I have a grandson who is autistic, and it is about a boy who has osteogenesis imperfecta, which is brittle bones disease, and he's also autistic. And I got to really partner with the director, John Gunn, and make a movie that really gets inside the life of a family and their struggles and the things they go through and the great things that they have to overcome together. What a beautiful movie. Zach Levi just happens to be in that one as well, in what I think is one of his greatest performances, and kind of a newcomer. The boy's been in some other stuff, but this kid, Jacob Laval, who plays Austin Lorette, the boy in the movie, is like, whoa. I think, nobody's gonna take advice from me for Academy Award nominations and stuff like that, but you better give this kid a statue soon, because he's whoa talented, and he just lived the role, and it was special watching that kid do what he did. And man, it's just one of those movies that is going to like cut to the core of you. It's the closest thing to E.T. that I made, so I can honestly say that thing that just emotionally gets right to the core of you. What a beautiful movie. I can't wait for people to see it. And the other performances in there are just great. This gal, Megan Fahey, she's in it. She's absolutely incredible as Austin's mother. So you guys are going to love the movie when you see it. It's really great.
That's dope.
We shot that literally right before in Oklahoma. That's how we made those movies, was back to back. So I shot Unbreakable Boy, then was prepping on Unbreakable Boy for Underdog, then rolled right into Underdog. So we were all in COVID lockdown in Oklahoma for 8 months, shooting all those movies together. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, that's kind of cool, actually.
It was a great idea. Lionsgate was brilliant to do that. And they got 2 great movies out of it.
Hell yeah. Third question, suggest a movie for people to watch that isn't yours.
Just a movie for people to watch.
And not E.T., because we know you're going to say E.T.
Yeah, no. I would. Can I go back to the Lighthouse again? Like
Yeah,
that
sure.
movie
Yeah,
is
that'll
just
work.
stuck with me. I mean, just watch that for performances. I mean, it's so good.
Robert Pattinson fucks. I don't like.
Dude,
Man, he got
he's
so
so
much
good.
shit for the Twilight movies, and then he nailed it. You do the movie that makes you all the money, and then you're allowed to make all the movies you want that you can just like Good Time, like all these. Robert Pattinson's dope,
Bro.
I never
That
thought I was going
guy.
to say that.
Never. I started thinking I need to go back and watch Twilight movies. Maybe I missed something out of that.
Yeah,
because it's like when 10 Things I Hate About You or something like that that had a guy Heath Ledger. Supposedly like that movie, I heard that Nolan saw that movie and was like, this kid has depth, and I'm like, I'm sorry, did we watch the same movie? I mean, it was fine or whatever, but what depth is on the screen? Maybe I missed all that.
Oh, you know what?
But,
I think it was Brokeback. I think I know the quote you're talking about. He said that he saw Brokeback and he thought that Ledger was fearless.
Oh, well, maybe it was that then. That is a great movie, actually. Man, Ang Lee is like so hit or miss for me, but that one was definitely it. Yeah, I would just say Lighthouse. I'm sure there's other ones too. I'm so into series now too.
Yeah, everyone says that. We're all watching shows now. Like the shows are just so good.
It's so weird, man. I don't know what's happening to me. Like my wife and I, new season of Ozark. I mean, you want to watch something that's new and that's informative about stuff that I kind of remember in high school. Watch Euphoria. I think that movie, while it's definitely heightening a lot, it's not really heightening a lot. And that stuff, like that, Marcel Rev is a genius, and like, just watch that show. That show knocks me off my ass every single time. I'm always like blown away by what I'm watching, and the performances are ridiculous. And Zendaya is perfect in every way, shape, or form. I love her.
That show, I've only seen a couple episodes of it. It's shot. Apparently, they're using positive film to shoot that.
Yes.
They're shooting Ektachrome, which is nuts. But I saw everyone on Twitter, and I was like, I can't tell if everyone hates this movie or this show or loves this thing, because it just seems like they're all clowning on it. But I think it's like
I jumped
the fun.
I jumped on episode 1 when it first came out, because I've got this story that I'm writing that I want to direct one day, and it is Sam Levinson, and really, like, if you don't like Assassination Nation, I think it was his movie.
I didn't see it.
It's a great movie and very visually like wild. Sorry, my dogs are losing it. Visually wild movie, but man, episode 1 grabbed me, and I was like, this is something I'm not seeing anywhere else. But it was still incredible story wise. And I feel like season 2, like season 1 was definitely the popcorn season. Now
Right.
Season 2, they're like going like no holds barred, and we are telling the story exactly the way we want to tell it. So no frills, just like let's just get to it and tell it the way that it needs to be told. So
Right. The Lighthouse and Euphoria.
yeah,
Very similar.
Very
Both shot on
basically
film?
same color spectrum. Both shot on film.
Yeah.
That says something.
Yeah. Well, that crazy orthographic film or whatever. Anyway, all right. I'm going to let you go. We'll definitely have to have you back on, because this has been
man,
so
let's
much
do this
fun.
again. And if you just want to call me and we'll just sit there and shoot the shit too, we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hell yeah, man. Cool. Well, I'll let you go, and I'll text you the dummy battery thing right now.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by ProVideo Coalition. Our theme song is written and performed by Mark Pelly, and the F&R Matbox logo was designed by Nate Truax of Truax Branding Company. You can read or watch the podcast you've just heard by going to provideocoalition.com or youtube.com/owlbot, respectively. And as always, thanks for listening.